Alrighty, guys, we are back for the end of our presentation here about direct quotes and in-text citations. So the next question we're going to ask ourselves is, what if we have more than four authors or four or more authors? Here's what you do. You include only the first author's name, followed by this fancy Latin saying, et al., okay? And it just means it's Latin. It means and others, okay? So when you got four or more authors, you don't want to just list all their names. You want to use this fancy Latin term. So look at this example. The study was extended for 2 years, and only after results were reviewed by an independent panel did the researchers publish their findings. Blaine et al. 35. Okay, pretty simple. That's how you do it. Make sure you have that period in there after AL before the 35. Don't forget that. What about indirect sources? So an indirect source is where you've quoted a source that's cited in another source. When you do that, you need to use this little phrase, quoted in. Now that quotation mark's wrong again. Quoted in to indicate the source you actually consulted. Here's an example. Ravitch argues that high schools are pressured to act as social service centers, and they don't do that well. That's quoted in Wiseman 259. So as you can see, they use quoted in Wiseman 259. But the person named Ravitch actually said this, but it wasn't Ravitch's book we were reading. It was Wiseman's book we were reading, and Wiseman was quoting Ravitch. Okay, it's kind of like if you've ever looked into a mirror and had another mirror behind it, bouncing off, the image is bouncing off. That's kind of what we're doing here. We've got a book inside a book that we're citing. Other questions. So if you ever get stuck with this stuff, there's two great links here that can help you, especially this OWL at Purdue. I use that all the time. So I'm in grad school right now, and I go and I use that for their APA resources on how to write my paper the right way. So they have an MLA workshop online that you can go in, and they tell you how to cite everything. They tell you how to format your paper, anything you need. That OWL at Purdue is a very, very good source. Long direct quotes. If you have a long quote that you want to use, if it's more than 4 lines, then there's a way you have to do that. You have to place quotations in a freestanding block of text and omit quotation marks. We'll show you how to do this at some point in class, but for this paper, you shouldn't do this. Don't have a long direct quote in your paper because we're talking about 5-paragraph research paper. You don't need a long quote that's longer than 4 lines. It's just not necessary. You start thinking about stuff like this when you get up to 12 pages plus, which your papers are going to be, 2, 3, 4 pages max. So we're not worried about this at this point. You should not do any long quotes like this. Here's an example, though, if you want to see it. So if you're going to have a long quote that's longer than 4 lines, you have to kind of chunk it off to the right, just like this. And you don't necessarily need quotation marks. Just have it over to the right. When do you use long quotations? Right now, you don't need to worry about long quotations because you're not probably going to use them in this essay. One last thing. If you want to omit information from a direct source, use an ellipsis to convey that there's language being left out. So an ellipsis is these 3 dots right here. Okay. No, it's not just something you put at the end of your sentence because you're not sure what to say next. An ellipsis does actually have a purpose. Can you believe it? It's crazy. So example, Big Bird sings, sunny days, chasing the clouds away. Can you tell me how to get to Sesame Street? We skipped the line there, on my way to where the air is clear. We skipped that line. Okay, so because we skipped that, we got to put something in there that shows that we skipped it. If you don't do this, you can commit libel, which is where you're writing false information about somebody or misquoting someone. You don't want to do that. That's a big deal because you can easily misquote someone by just taking out part of what they say. You definitely do not want to do that. Okay, that is the end of our presentation. At this point, if there's time left, the teacher's going to hand out a worksheet for you guys to work on. Please take that seriously and read all the directions very carefully. Do your best on it, and I will see you tomorrow.